Hey guys, so I was lucky enough to play with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One for the last 48 hours. So I'm going to be doing a series of videos that basically covers a whole range of topics, from some games that I saw live demos of and some games I actually played. So this first video, I'm going to talk about the PS4 controller and what I thought about that. So let's do it. So the first time I got to play with the PS4 controller, I played it at the booth at Fan Expo here in Canada, and I picked it up, and the first thing I thought was something feels a little bit weird, and I'm still kind of debating on what exactly that was or what I felt there, but I'm pretty sure that the two horns that come down the side on the controller here are a little bit more pushed in than the usual controller, or just the way that it was formed, and something just felt a little bit off for me. Not that it's necessarily a bad thing, it's just I think it's going to take me a couple of days probably to get used to it. So in terms of the actual touchpad that's on the PS4 controller, I thought it was pretty cool that you can go through the menus and swipe through your movies up and down through the menu systems, but there's something I didn't really understand was if the button had different points that you can actually touch. And what I mean by that is the button can be clicked in. It's actually kind of floating above the controller. At least it feels like it was floating, like a little pad that's floating above, and it kind of bends over the back a little bit, and you could kind of touch it as a touchscreen, but you could also click it in, and I'm not sure how that's going to be used in gaming, but it definitely opens up all kinds of possibilities. I'm not sure how you guys would really know what that felt like unless you touched it or moved it around yourself, but it's a lot like just having a piece of an iPhone on the controller and just touching it and be able to click it in as well. So in terms of the triggers and the right and left shoulder buttons, these things are redesigned, and not only are they redesigned, they are just in a perfect position on this controller in terms of the top of the controller. The way that you actually interact with the triggers now feels just a lot smoother. There's less pressure to push the button in. There's still pressure, but don't get me wrong, there's pressure there, but just something has been reset. Something has been fixed in that. Not that it was ever bad with the PS3, but this is just a step in the right direction. It feels very, very smooth. It feels like you could hold it at half of its pressure for games like Gran Turismo 7 or whenever that comes out for the PS4. Games like that where you have to go half speed, or I can see it in any game where you have to do half of the full throttle. It is just very impressive, and I was really impressed with that. So next up would be the analog sticks on this controller, and I felt that half of you guys are going to bitch and moan about the fact that the dome is gone, and then the other half are going to be happy about this controller. My personal opinion on this matter is that although that they've clearly taken a little ice cream scoop out of the controller, there still is a bit of a dome, and I think you really need to look at the design closer to realize that dip is still not as deep as you would think it would be. I still felt the top of a dome in the controller, but it just had this little sensation of being a better grip. So essentially, I think they just took the dome aspect and threw a ring around it. And did that help my fingers stay on the controller? I'm gonna be honest, I was sweating, I was playing Assassin's Creed, I was in a line for an hour, and my fingers were slipping and hitting each other. I'm just telling you what happened. Does that mean the controller's bad? No, I'm just telling you my first impressions of touching the PS4 controller. Did it feel smooth? Absolutely. Did it feel like they spent a lot of time on the design of the controller? Absolutely. Do I like it more than the PS3 controller? I'm still thinking about that. I still can't determine that until I play a few more games. I mean, I played Assassin's Creed, and I also played Drive Club with this. And they're two different games, so I felt two different game styles, and it's smooth as hell. So my overall thought for the PS4 controller is definitely a step in the right direction. They didn't make any design choices here that I felt were drastic and really bringing the controller down in terms of how I felt it in my hands. I will say that the word claustrophobic comes to mind when I held the controller for the first time. It took me a good 20 minutes before I actually felt comfortable with it. The D-pad It feels better than any D-pad that I've ever felt on any PlayStation controller. The analog sticks with the dome still intact. People are, a lot of people are saying, well, the dome is gone, but it really is essentially just deeper into the controller. And the touchpad is the main feature on this controller where everyone's gonna, all the hardcore audiences, well, what do we do with that? Is that just like the original Kinect? Like, is that for kids? Like, what is that? Is that just to go through systems? But I honestly think that there's some crazy things that can be developed, and not just crazy things in terms of the games, but in terms of the way that we interact with menus and how we interact with like JRPGs and menu systems. I think swiping is just obviously we're used to it. So having that input on a controller is, to me, is a brilliant idea. The ability to go through your menu system by just swiping your finger very easily instead of moving the D-pad and hitting a button, I think that's just the way gaming should be. It should have been that way always. If we're going to take one thing from these phones right here, I don't consider this a system. It's a phone, but I can take one thing away from it, and if I'm at Sony, it would be the touchscreen, because we all know and love it now on our phones, and now it's on our controller, and it actually works pretty good. So that's my opinion on the PS4 controller. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for the support of the show. Hopefully I can get my hands on this bad boy before November 15th and, really get into some gaming. Thank you for watching this. You guys have been great. I'm really appreciative of everybody that watches this show, so thank you so much, guys.